Next up, we got Michel Pereira taking on Andre Petroski. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, you were saying in my first look chat section that you couldn't let me bet Petroski in this spot. And listen, I understand, man. Maybe it's my Renzo Gracie biases here, but I'll tell you what, Andre Petroski for me has been a guy that I've regretted not betting more on him in the past. I bet him against Nick Maximov. He was a big underdog in that spot. People are thinking he's not as good a grappler. He's not as good with the cardio. And he just insta-killed the guy, like choked him right unconscious and put him to sleep. And I think that was benefited by the fact that other guy wanted to grapple with him. But even still, he was able to just easily get that finish. I think that his strength and his physicality is something serious at 185 pounds. He's a really broad-shouldered guy. He's got power to lift and return on takedowns. And I look at a guy like Michel Pereira, and I think of a guy that likes to weight bully people a little bit, who likes to be the bigger guy, who likes to be able to go, and just like make people run away from him because of his size. And I do think he's got some power in his hands, but he hasn't been recording many knockouts or knockdowns recently in the UFC. He's lost to an effing featherweight. Are we forgetting about Tristan Connolly going out there and beating this guy? And so I think to myself, Michel Pereira is definitely getting better, but I've been talking about this as an angle for me, Rich. When somebody misses weight and F's up a card, they cause headaches for the matchmakers. I think they try and put them in a situation where they get beat, where they get embarrassed, where they go against a guy that's less known, that's not as big a star in the division, not as highly ranked, but is a terrible stylistic matchup. And in this case, they're actually forcing him to go up from 170 to 185 pounds and take on a primary grappler, which he has not had to do yet in the UFC, that also has a good submission game. And frankly, on the feet, he's got some power as well. And we've seen Dusko Todorovic, of all people, send this guy to the land of wind and ghosts on the regional scene. So I just think to myself, Michel Pereira, not a bad fighter, but at 185 pounds, what's his track record? It's kind of average. So I think of him as a guy that's a little bit exploitable potentially in this spot. I thought at 170, he did have some upside because he's huge, right? And I just thought, you give him a Wonder Boy or something like that, he should be able to barrel him over to the floor and submit him, frankly. But in this spot, I'm like, is he really going to do that to Andre Petroski? I don't see that. And I think that the losses for Andre Petroski have aged out okay. Aaron Jeffries, he's still a relevant fighter. He's not the best guy in the world, but he's still relevant. Brian Battle, he's lighting the world on fire now at 170 pounds after dropping down, had some real wins at 185. So for me, I like Andre Petroski to potentially upset the apple cart here. And I do think he has a submission game that could win him this fight. So Andre Petroski is the pick for me early on, and I'm going to do a little more due diligence. I can't remember seeing many instances of Michel Pereira grappling. I know he's done a good job defending takedowns, but I just think that Petroski is probably the biggest, strongest guy he's fought so far in the UFC. So wouldn't be surprised if he just picks him up and barrels him sideways in the air. What do you think about this one, Rich?
Do you think Petroski is a win is contingent on him getting a submission, or do you think he could wrestle for the 3 rounds and get a decision?
It'll be a greasy one if it goes off 15. Because we have seen Michel's turn up on people a little bit in round 3 before, but I also think that Pereira is he fits the category of a head case idiot to me as well, because of that Diego Sanchez fight, where he's like starting to turn up the pressure on him and then just goes, just knees him into oblivion and gets disqualified. I was like, oh my God, this freaking guy. So for me, the Connolly stunt, as well as the other stunt, makes me think it's kind of a wash. But yeah, I do think it would be a greasier fight over 15 for sure. I think Petroski's most live in the first 7, especially on short notice.
Yeah, I'm all over Pereira here, and KO round 2 and 3. I think it's going to be a body kick TKO for Pereira. I like the move up to 185, whether it was he was made to do it or not. I don't think cutting weight is good for fighters. I'm one of those who believe, you should fight around your natural weight class, you're less compromised, etc. Petroski, this one at late notice isn't going to bode well for him, in my opinion. I love fight doesn't go the distance as well. I had GM3 by KO in that fight and almost got it in round 3, and he's old as fuck and slow with his striking, and that was almost on as well. Pereira's a black belt, so I don't think he's going to get subbed. That's not too deep because I know Maximov is an accomplished grappler and he got subbed, but he didn't respect Petroski, man. He thought he was the superior grappler and went with a sloppy takedown. I don't think Michel's going to do that. I think he's going to play it safe. He's going to have movement. He's going to be too elusive. And like I said, he throws them teep kicks to the body, man. and I just see one of them catching, and yeah, him getting a TKO. And to your point, man, Diego Sanchez, Tristan Connolly, they were some bullshit performances, but they were back in the day. He is on a 4-fight win streak against some semi-decent competition like Chaos Williams, when Chaos Williams was hot for a minute after KOing some people. So I do think he's come into his own. I think he's learning from each fight against strikers as well, yet to be TKO'd. So yeah, it's all uphill for Pereira in this one. I don't see many pluses for Petroski, especially the late notice man. He's a gasser. In my opinion, he's a jiu-jitsu guy playing MMA. Not a good striker at all. He'll just wing some bombs in round one until he gasses. He's just fortunate from the matchups that he's had, man. Maximov, who didn't respect him. Yao Huzong, that Chinaman. That fight was disgusting. It took him 3 rounds to get his submission. So yeah, say no more. I love the Pereira side, man.
Interesting. So a little bit of dissension on the panel here. I think that this guy is pretty dangerous with the grappling. He has wins over Phil Hawes and Eric Anders. And I remember people were saying like, bro, this isn't jujitsu to me when I was talking about Joe Pyfer's wins on the grappling circuit. But it's like, yeah, but he's beating UFC level guys, and they're all trying to do the same thing here, which is, hold people down, not get held down, and look for the chokes. And in a lot of these grappling matches, because they're so evenly matched, you don't see the finish. Eric Anders is a guy that I think's been submitted twice in pro MMA, and once was by Muniz via falling armbar. So it's not like he's a guy that's just an easy mark, and he did submit him as